Welcome to After the Call, the podcast dedicated to the stories and struggles behind the badge, the turnout gear, and the uniform. Each week, we'll bring you a powerful conversations with first responders, mental health professionals, and advocates who are breaking the stigma, sharing their journeys, and offering real solutions. We'll talk about PTSD resilience, family impact, and the resources that can make a difference. Because the job doesn't just leave scars on the body, it affects the mind, the heart, and the people who serve alongside us. And no one should have to carry that burden alone. This is After the Call, where you'll find strength through resilience.
Welcome to another episode of After the Call. I'm your host, Patrick, followed by
Veronica.
And Josh.
And today we have Hope with Freedom Coffee. So we have kind of a cool connection because not only do you do coffee, but you do something very special for fallen service members. And it's very dear to my heart because you have honored me by putting my daughter on a bag of coffee. Sorry. So it's very near and dear to me because this is something that not only do I have in my house now that I can look at forever, but you put it up in your shop and then, you know, it just keeps passing on the memory of that. And it's just amazing.
Look, if you need evidence for what you do matters.
Yeah. So it's pretty cool. So I personally just wanted to thank you because that's pretty wild that you did that for my daughter, but you also did it for another co-founder of Afterwatch for DJ for his son, which is just cool. And you do it for 12 others throughout the year.
Oh yeah. It's an honor. I'm humbled that I have this opportunity to do it. How it came about, obviously, it was very, it was nearly took me out. But that was my purpose to find a purpose to stay. When I lost my husband, he was killed in action in 2020. That nearly took me out. The devastation of that, I never thought I was going to come back from it. And one day I just had this, something just clicked, and I made a promise to God, and that was to, for the rest of my life, honor his sacrifice. And then over time, I realized it wasn't just about his sacrifice. It was about so many others, some of the families that I've come to love. And one of the things that their biggest fear was, that their loved one would be forgotten. Mm-hmm. And so in my mind, I'm like, what can I do to, at least here in Arizona and our little state, how can I make a change in that? And so over time, the coffee idea started growing. My husband loved coffee, so that was, it was going to be with coffee somehow, some way. But yeah, in the process of getting through grief, and it never ends. Grief never ends. There are some moments I'll be at work and I'll just be cleaning, or at the coffee shop, or I'll be moving something around and it'll just hit me. I'll see a picture or the realization of, this is really it. And, or he's the one person that I want to see it and he's not here. He'll never see it. But then I look at all the other heroes and it's almost as if I can feel the pain of the families. And that's what, it's been hard. It's been challenging. Starting a business, as a solo mother with a small child, and just starting a business in general in this day and age. But what drives me is I look at the bags, and I know it's not just about me. It's about all the families. It's about them. And I'm firm on my faith. And John 15:13, greater love hath no man than this, and he that gives his life for his friends. And each one of them has displayed that courage, and each one of them fought a battle. And they didn't make it back home. So, and we're just expanding, and every year we honor, different heroes. And I'm going to have a whole wall. I'm still decorating, but I'm going to have a whole wall where each year of heroes, I'll display those heroes. And so their faces will always be there. As long as that coffee shop is there, they're going to be there. And I encourage our customers to go in and look at their faces, say their names. We live with that every day. So
I think it's cool.
Yeah.
No, it's cool. The other thing that was really humbling for me was you allowed us to pick the name, which is cool. So
yeah, I again, this whole thing was not about me. I'm just the Lord's hands and feet, and you know, I just really pray through everything. But I wanted the families to feel like they were part of it. Like I wouldn't be doing this. I wouldn't be able to do this without the help of so many others, the support. But this is for them as well. This is about their heroes, and so I let the families know, you know, if because it's all by word of mouth. So I don't go out, you know, and I, you know, it's all by word of mouth. So if someone says, hey, I have a friend, then I'm like, send them my way. And, you know, I let them know, like, you know, you can pick the name, pick the picture. So I want the families to feel like they have involvement in it as well.
Definitely had involvement. Yeah. So it was cool. And it's weird because the first time I think we had a meeting, like this wasn't even on my radar. I mean, obviously the tragic loss of my daughter didn't happen until, you know, December, but, it's just weird how we're put in certain positions at the right time. You know, all these connections are made with the right people, and it was crazy.
Divine appointments. Yeah,
sure.
there's I've had so many divine appointments, but lately the one of the, you know, a divine appointment that just brought me to tears was I was in the coffee. We have a patch wall and a coin challenge box on our walls for anyone to bring in any patches and coins and things like that. And I was running. I was supposed to leave work, and I was running a little late. And I finally was heading out the door, and I saw a gentleman putting some patches on the wall. So something in me said go see what he's putting up there. So I did. I you know, thanked him for his service, and we chatted a little. Well, come to find out, there was one of the guys on our first team of heroes. I believe it was 2021. His widow is a good friend of mine, and we met at a Widows of Heroes retreat. And he was in training in Eloy and lost his life there. And his parachute didn't, you know, there was a malfunction or something, and he lost his life during training, and 2 weeks away from being home. I feel like that's how it always is. And so that was back in 2020 when he lost his life, and he was a Marine. And so this guy, you know, this was maybe a week and a half ago, he's putting a patch on the wall. We're talking, and he says, you know, we lost a Marine out here. And I said, I didn't know that. And in my mind, I'm thinking, well, if you find out who he is, let me know. Let me know his family, and we can honor him. But I didn't say that. And he was talking about it, and he says, yeah, I'm the first one to find him, you know, and they were both Marines, so he felt that connection, and it hit him hard. And so he mentioned a name, and it sounded familiar. And I said, what was the name? And so and then it clicked. That's my friend's husband. And so I pulled out a picture. I said, is this him? And he said, yeah, that's him. And so my friend had never met this guy, and he's the one who found her husband and still has the parachute. And he said, you know, I don't know why I held on to this, but I found it in the desert, and it's his, and I don't know why I held on to it. And so I said, I know the widow, I know his kids. So there was that connection that was made. And, you know, I called her right away on my way home, and I said, you know, hey, I got some news for you, you know, and so I shared it with her, and she said, you know, I don't even know what to say right now. She says, I just need time to process this. So, you know, she's able to be connected with the person that found her husband and retrieve the parachute that, you know, that was his. And just thank the people of Arizona City. You know, they're such a great community, and they were such a huge support to her. So now she's going to have my grand opening March 28th, and she's going to try to fly out and just thank the city of the Arizona City for, you know, for their support, their prayers, and meet the gentleman that was there with her husband.
That's cool.
Yeah.
What a crazy story.
Mm-hmm.
Like, could you just, I mean, I couldn't imagine, like, just years later getting a random call. And I know you have a connection with her, but I mean, who puts all that together?
Yeah.
I mean, that's just insane.
Yeah, and it's crazy because my front door to the coffee shop, he stood there and told me, he said, you know, he opened the door, he says, right down the street is where he was. And so I feel like, you know, it's a divine appointment, another divine appointment, you know, and, you know, it's just God making those connections. But yeah, it's bittersweet, you know, it's very bittersweet. I don't know. There, like I said, it hits me. And even though I may not have known these heroes in person, a lot of the families I do. And so it affects me personally.
How long have you been doing this?
I want to say the idea came to me, I want to say it was I lost my husband in 2020, so maybe 2021-ish. But honestly, I have widow brain and I forget so much. But this is my 3rd year of actually having the coffee bags.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
That's really cool.
What are your plans to go from here?
Oh gosh.
I mean, I know you say widow brain, but I mean, I'm sure you have ideas coming out of the woodwork.
I do. I mean, so many things just are popping off, and I don't get to sleep a lot just because I'll be laying there and a new idea will pop up, and I'm like, hold on, like I gotta, make sure our baristas know how to make this coffee first. And, we have amazing baristas. I'm so blessed that, we have our baristas they're all experienced and they just, they bring the ideas to the table. And, I don't really have to spend a lot of time with them just because they're so experienced. So it allows me to place myself in other areas that's needed as well. But, honestly, I'm not sure. I pray through everything. Like, I'm just like, all right, God, what specials are we going to do today? It sounds silly, but literally that's how I've done everything. I mean, from the day that I was told about the coffee shop, it was a 7-day process. So a friend of mine, he owned the building and where the coffee shop was in Arizona City, calls me on a Sunday night and says, hey, I need to talk to you. Up to this point, there was nothing in the works for a coffee shop. I mean, the idea was there, but it was more like, if it ever happens, great. If it doesn't, I'll just do the bags. And so it was on a Sunday night that he called me, and within 7 days, I had the keys in my hand. And I just sat there and I'm like, wow, that was quick. And ever since then, it's been busy, but as far as moving forward, I really would like to get our coffee shop solid, and really just, have a great layout, a solid layout. And if the Lord willing, I'd like to do a franchise and have it in other places for other families to maybe pick up and honor their loved one while honoring others. I have a wall where it sort of shares our story, and I'm adding to it, but it'll be kind of personalized to how it all started with my life and my story. But for other families who would like to maybe do it, there would be a solid foundation, but they'd get to have the opportunity to kind of share their personal story. So that's what I'm hoping. I know it's given me purpose, and it gives me a reason to wake up and be able to talk about my husband. And so I thought, well, maybe there are other families who this might help them too. But it's definitely not been, it's not been smooth. We've had some hiccups. There's been a few days where I've gotten a call like at 6 a.m. or a text, our grinder's not working. And I'm like, great. Grinders are expensive, or, we're out of ice. And, there I am running to the store for 10 bags of ice, and people are just looking at me like, you having a party? I'm like, no, I have a coffee shop.
6 o'clock in the morning.
And in Arizona City, there's not a lot of stores there. So to picking up 10 bags of ice, they just kind of give you a look. Or
you're also taking the 10 bags of ice that are in there.
last 10 bags?
Yeah. Pretty much, yep.
A buddy of mine who works at Eloy Fire, his name is Jeremy Leary. He's been there forever, but his parents own an ice company right off there, Battaglia.
Oh, okay.
Battaglia and Frontier, I think. There's I can't remember what it's called, like Igloo Ice or something like that. But
yeah,
they got a sign out there in front and everything. Have you seen it?
I haven't, but I need
right,
to look it up.
He lives right next door to the Dollar General.
Okay. Oh, I know where that's at.
So, like, right next door to the Dollar General, there's an ice sign or whatever, and that's my buddy Jeremy Leary. Still works at the fire department down there.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go check him out. I just
if you ever need ice again,
heading there. I'm gonna get a little contract with them. But no, I just ordered an ice machine that puts out double the ice. So I'm thinking, on our busy days, I may only need like 5 bags instead of 10. But yeah, we're growing. It's great. Like I said, the city of Arizona City, they're amazing people. They love the coffee and
huge supporters of veterans out there.
Yeah. I didn't realize it. I asked the previous owner. I said, are there veterans out here? And he said, oh yeah, there's a lot. And now I realize like there's a huge community of veterans out there. So it's great. Yeah. And we're right down the street from the fire department too. Mm-hmm. So they come in, they'll buy us out our pastries. They'll buy like a couple dozen, and
if they don't have enough,
every now and then there's a few that come in almost daily. But yeah, it's great to see our servicemen coming in and first responders coming in and having a place where they're welcomed. And I make sure all my staff, all my baristas know, like, hey, treat these individuals, extra special for what they do.
I'm not gonna lie, I've seen some of the videos of the drinks that you guys are making. It's like straight up diabetes in a bottle.
I know,
it's crazy.
I know. I feel so guilty sometimes. I know. I feel so guilty sometimes. I'm like, oh my gosh. But, it's my baristas are great, but they're young. And they're all about the fun drinks and stuff. And I'm more of like, just give me like 3 shots of espresso with some protein in it, and I'm good. That was my drink that I came up with, but my version of adding to the menu was, all right, we got to have something like protein coffee. Like, we can't just have all this sugar and coffee. Like, I don't want our customers to get sick, but it is good though. Like, our coffee's good. My roaster, he lives in Tucson. He's a Border Patrol agent. Canine handler, so he's very passionate about what I'm doing as well, what we're doing together. And how I chose him, I interviewed like 3 different top roasters near Gilbert, and so I was trying to decide, like, who am I going to go with. And he and I somehow got connected through Instagram, I believe, and I saw something along the lines with the grinder, or I don't know, espresso machine, and we started chatting, and I asked him, I said, are you a roaster? And he says, yeah. And I said, well, where are you? And he's like, I'm in Tucson. And so in my mind, I'm like, do I really want to make that drive? And I'm like, well, why not? Give it one more try. So met with him and his wife in Tucson, and it was like instant. And as soon as he made the comment of, you will always have the best quality beans because these families and these heroes deserve the best, I knew. I was like, all right, you're my guy. Mm-hmm. Not to mention he's a canine handler, and we honor canines on our bags as well.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So I did get chills when you said the 7-day thing, because like when I was going through my journey of finding religion, mm-hmm. like I kept seeing 7, and I never knew what it actually represented. And then through a little bit of research and talking to my buddy who's like the encyclopedia of Bible, like this, you can ask him anything, but the whole thing of 7, representing completion and all that stuff, like that's crazy.
Yeah, that was someone mentioned that to me, because 7 was kind of a special number to me. My birthday's falls on November 7th, and then my daughter is September 7th, and my husband picked her birthday. The doctor asked him, which I'm like, why didn't he ask me? But the doctor asked him, she can be born on the 7th or the 8th. And I look at him and I'm like, he better say now. Like, let's get this ball rolling now. And he did good. He's like, all right, let's do the 7th, because my wife is the 7th as well. So 7 was special to me. So when I realized, like, wow, that was a 7-day like process, and someone said, Dave, 7 represents completion. And then it hit me. I said, okay, I asked, through the whole process of it, I was asking God for prayer, like confirmation. And then when my friend said that, I said, okay, then, because there's always that question of, did I do the right thing? What did I just, as a solo mom, what did I just get myself into? Because my daughter, she goes to school in Gilbert. The coffee shop is in Arizona City, and I don't have a whole lot of help with her. I have, my sons that, if they're available, they might be able to pick her up or something. So I was pretty nervous about making that step. But so far, we've had our minor hiccups as to be expected, but I feel like everything's just going right along. God's bringing the right people to us, and it's growing. Yeah.
Well, with our connection, he'll get the Eloy fire department down there, I guess.
Yeah, heck yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It was really cool. We had
I've spent a lot of time at that skydive clinic. I spent a lot of time there over the years at Eloy Fire.
Let me know first though, so I can make sure we have all.
You have it all ready to go.
Have everything ready to go,
Sounds good.
Full of pastries. But yeah, it's great. Last week, I think it was, we had a whole team of Border Patrol that showed up, and they asked not to be featured, and they didn't want us to post, but it was really cool because I have one on my wall is like a big flag, and I wanted the biggest flag that I can get on there. I think the next size up, it would have like been dragging on the floor, and I'm like, no, we can't have that. So we went with the size down, and it covers pretty much our whole wall, and they stood against the wall. And I did get a picture because I thought it was cool, but because they're all in their uniforms. But yeah, if we can get the fire department in there, if we can get a picture, that'd be awesome.
Sounds good. I'll call.
Make it happen, Captain.
So are you located along the main road in Arizona City?
Yeah, so it's kind of a special location. It's right off of exit 200 on I-10. So if you're going south, like you'll pass the Florence, all those shopping areas, and then you'll pass the San Diego exit, and then it's the very next exit, which is exit 200. And that highway is kind of special. When I first met my husband, he lived in Gilbert, I lived in Tucson, and so I made that drive. He and I both, we would make that drive like nonstop. I know that road, like I can probably drive it blind, which I sort of do because I can't see very well, and I refuse to wear glasses. But so that the highway was kind of special to me. So the fact that it's right off the freeway of that road, sometimes when I'm driving, it again, it's kind of silly, but I just envision that he's sitting in the car next to me, and just like old times, we would make that drive a lot. And so, yeah, it was, matter of fact, it was on that drive that that I knew that he was the one. We had just started dating, and we were driving, and I had this like weird fear of me losing him. And I mean, we had only been dating maybe 2 months, and but this wave of sadness came over me, and I had this weird fear of, and I had never cried in front of him, and so I'm looking out the window, and like I just get really emotional, and it just came out of nowhere. I'm not back then I wasn't a crier. Like I just never, I don't know, I guess I knew how to control my feelings. But and so I looked out the window, and I'm like, this is so embarrassing. And so then he said, what's wrong? And I said, nothing, I'm okay. He says, look at me. And so I turned, and I had these tears just rolling, and he says, why are you crying? I said, I have no idea. I said, I just had this strange feeling that, what if I lose you? And he says, well, you're not going to lose me. And I said, no. I said, not, like, I don't know. I said, I just have this strange feeling of losing you, and I can't ever lose you. And so it was on that road, on that freeway, that I realized, like, there's something special about him. And then the rest was history, obviously. But so yeah, it's a special highway for me. And of course, coffee was his thing. He loved coffee, so that's so everything is just kind of intertwined. And I know that's how I know, like, God, this was a divine appointment from God.
Do you want to give a backstory on your husband's career? Not what happened, but just what he did?
Yeah. He was, for about 10 years, give or take, he was a ISR pilot, intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance pilot, working as a civilian contractor for the Department of Defense, working alongside our military. He was a very highly skilled pilot, which is why he was doing what he was doing. He was directly working with the global war on terrorism. And that is eventually how he lost his life, killed in action by the terrorist organization Al-Shabaab.
Well, thank you for his service and all that stuff. Please give a shout out, address and stuff for the shop. And if you want to shout out to the baristas or whatever, give them a shout out.
Yes. So our baristas, when you go in, our baristas are Ayla, McKinley, Lexi, and Elias. Elias only works on Saturdays, and I have a feeling there's a lot of females that come in to see him, but and that's okay.
Is there older folks down there?
I don't know, but can we request Elias to bring us coffee on our 24-hour broadcast? He's going to be the one to bring it.
Blue hairs.
But yes, but for the most part, it's mostly my girls, and I feel like I just gained 3 daughters. But it's McKinley, Lexi, Ayla. They're amazing baristas. We are located again off exit 200, 13640 South Sunland Gin Road in Arizona City. And our hours are Monday through Friday, 6 to 4, and then weekends 8 to Saturday is 5, and then Sunday 8 to 3.
Okay.
And if they can't go there, can they order your coffee somewhere else?
We do have DoorDash. I don't have a shop in Gilbert yet or near Gilbert. That's kind of also on my project is, you know, I want to get that one balanced and you know, just stable, and then maybe open one near Gilbert somewhere closer so I can be closer to my daughter as well. But I don't. We'll see.
Well, you can order
Online.
the bag. You can order the bag stuff online.
The bags, yeah. We do have a merch store, and then we have our coffee bags online, and then there's a few other organizations that we partner with. Dark Horse Racing, that we also have a lot of some of their merchandise in our store as well, and they are a veteran racing team.
Cool.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I appreciate you coming out. I don't know if you have any other questions.
No.
I think it's great. Like I said, I'm truly humbled. I mean, it's hard not to be emotional about it. But.
Oh, I get it. I'm honored. It's an honor. You know, I'm grateful that I get to do this for the families and, you know, for you. And I'm grateful for this partnership as well.
Appreciate it. Thanks. Well, thanks for coming out, and we'll have to have you back on once you open your Gilbert shop. And then we'll do that.
We can like record there or something.
Oh yeah,
that would be cool.
I would love it.
Because I think you were talking about that originally.
I would. Eventually, I'd like to maybe start some type of podcast or allow someone to do their podcast in my shop, and you know, I you know, talking with maybe the families of the fallen and, you know, anyone who deals in that area. But yeah, we'll see. I don't know. It might be another 7-day process.
Never know. Well, thanks for coming out, and we gave you a patch to put up there, and there's also a coin on that coin. So what's significant for us is the bison, and the reason we put that on there is the bison, you know, compared to a cow, will face the storm instead of running for shelter. So it's like it'll face the storm and go all the way through it. So that's our awesome representation of our, I guess, our spirit animal.
That's awesome.
So you can put that up there.
Appreciate it. Yep, it's going to go up today as soon as I get back to the shop.
Sweet. Well, thanks for coming out.
Thank you.